Dr. J here of the drj.com and the 2020from.com. In today's video, I'm going to be talking to you about what I consider to be the best approach to managing pre-diabetes and type 2 diabetes. This has been triggered by a letter that I received recently from a lady. And here goes the letter. She says, Dear Dr. Joe, I noticed you've been doing a series on diabetes management recently. Yes, I have been doing a video series on that. Thank you very much for noticing. I would like your opinion on the best diet for type 2 diabetes. I've just been recently diagnosed and I'm really confused as to what path to follow. Well, this is a very common problem. When you get your diagnosis of pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetes, you go online searching for solutions, and what you're going to get is conflicting advice. So Guru A will tell you do it this way, and then you probably watch another video or read something else online, and Guru B saying do something that is directly opposed to what Guru A has just said. So it's very common to get confused. I'm going to do my best to guide you in my own way, and hopefully this is the pathway that you will choose. But you can also choose the other pathway. But this is the one that has worked for me, and that's the reason that I will preach it, if you like. Now, when it comes to management of pre-diabetes and type 2 diabetes, what goes inside your mouth counts a lot. Okay, the dietary aspect of managing pre-diabetes and type 2 diabetes is very, very important. So what I'm going to do here is talk about the dietary approach, because I think that's what the lady has asked for. I'm not going to talk about other aspects of the management today. So broadly speaking, there are two pathways that you may want to follow when it comes to management of pre-diabetes and type 2 diabetes. In the interest of balance, I'm going to talk about the two, and it's up to you which one you choose in the end. Okay, so pathway number one. Oh, by the way, after talking about the two approaches, I'm going to give you my own specificities, okay? The way I approach it. So you want to stay put and see what I have to say on my own way of going about it, okay? So pathway number one. This is what I call Carbs Avoidance Approach, okay? Carbs Avoidance Approach. And this is based on the fact that the blame game is on carbs. Carbs are said to be responsible for your pre-diabetes and your type 2 diabetes, and it's a natural instinct to want to avoid them. Okay, so that's the approach that this pathway follows. So it's a carbs avoidance approach, and what belongs to this approach? Well, you got the ketogenic diet, you got the paleo diet, you got the carnivore diet, and you got the Atkins diet. There are others, but those are the main ones that follow this carbohydrate avoidance approach. Now, does it work? Of course it does work, and lots of people use this diet or this approach. Now, and in fact, the main pro for this carbohydrate avoidance approach is that you get quick results, okay? So the next time you check in your hemoglobin A1C, you're going to get fantastic results, and that will encourage you to carry on. So that's one big plus of adopting the pathway number one, where you avoid carbs. So that's the pro. What about the cons? Well, these diets are quite restrictive, okay? There's not much room for flexibility within them. So for me, that is a big negative. Next is that they're not very blood lipid friendly. So what will happen is when you engage with these diets, you notice that in vast majority of cases that your LDL cholesterol levels are going to be rising. And the gurus will tell you not to worry about your LDL cholesterol levels, that it doesn't pose any cardiovascular risk to you. But I beg to differ. I would rather have low or normal LDL cholesterol levels than have high ones. I will leave it at that, because we can go on with the debate forever. So that's another downside. The other one is that these diets are not really very kidney friendly. So if you're somebody whose diabetes has affected your kidneys, where you have developed chronic kidney disease, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, stage 5, these are not the diets for you, because at the end of the day, these diets are really loaded with a lot of animal proteins. Because the reason you get quick results is that you're avoiding carbs. So what you're going to eat instead is you're going to be having lots of animal proteins, meat, for instance, and your kidneys, they don't particularly like animal proteins. And if your kidneys are already affected by your diabetes, where you got chronic kidney disease, there's a very good chance that your kidney function will deteriorate over time, okay, eating this. So yeah, that's a big negative for me. All right, one thing is clear: when you're eating the ketogenic diet, the carnivore diet, the Atkins diet, and the paleo diet, your kidney function is not going to improve. If your kidney function is already bad, it's not going to improve. If you're lucky, it will stay where it is, but if you're unlucky, your kidney function is going to depreciate some more. Okay, so that's another downside there. Now, the other thing is whether you can continue with this kind of diets in the long term, because yeah, they're quite restrictive. So that's another downside, because when it comes to management of your pre-diabetes and your type 2 diabetes, you need to be thinking medium to long term. So yes, you're going to get quick results, but can you see yourself eating this way in 3 years' time, in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time? Because management of type 2 diabetes is a marathon. It's not a sprint event, okay? So anyway, that's for pathway number 1. I told you I was going to talk about both because you need to know the pros and the cons, all right? So next is pathway number 2, and this is the one I call carbs tackling approach. So in this approach, you want to tackle carbs head on. You're not going to be afraid of them. You're going to tackle them head on, if you like, all right? And in this approach, what you've got here is mainly plant-based eating, okay? Plant-based diet. So plant-based diet is actually a spectrum, all right? It's not just one particular diet. And that's one thing I like about it. There's a lot of flexibility there. So in the plant-based way of eating, you've got the 100% strictly plant-based, okay? These are the vegans, okay? Now, not all plant-based eaters are vegans, by the way, okay? All vegans are plant-based eaters, but not all plant-based eaters are vegans. As you see now, because we've got subcategories like the lacto-vegetarians. These are the ones that will have something like yogurt, okay? They'll have a bit of dairy, you know, like yogurt. And you got the ovo-vegetarians. These are the ones that will have eggs. You got the pesco-vegetarians. These are the ones that will have fish and seafood. And you also have the no-oil, whole food, plant-based eaters, okay? These are the people who do not want to touch oil at all. And that's because oil has been shown to actually worsen type 2 diabetes, your insulin resistance, I should say. So this group of eaters, the no oil, whole food, plant-based eaters, they want to stay away from oil altogether. Well, something else I forgot to mention in the pathway number 1, the carbohydrate avoidance approach, is that those individuals, they're now actually dealing with the main problem, i.e. insulin resistance, which is the cause of the pre-diabetes and the type 2 diabetes. You are just papering over the crack. You are having a detour around the problem. So one thing you will notice is that if you are doing the carbohydrate avoidance approach, if you have a carb like a banana, you see your blood sugar really skyrocket. And that's because you are still very insulin resistant. And indeed, pathway number 1, the ketogenic diet, the paleo diet, the carnivore diet, the Atkins diet, that way of eating will make your insulin resistance worse, okay? Something for you to note, okay? So let's move on. Also, in pathway number 2, the occasional meat eaters, okay? So that's pathway number 2. By the way, so what are the pros of pathway number 2? Well, it's quite flexible. I mentioned that earlier on, and it's something you can do in the long term. 3 years time, 5 years time, you can see yourself eating plant-based. There's no, concern regarding that. Is blood lipid friendly. You actually see your cholesterol levels dropping when you're eating plant-based. And it's also very kidney friendly. If anything, it actually improves your kidney function if you already have chronic kidney disease. So all the negatives of the carbohydrate avoidance approach, they are positives in the plant-based eating world. So what's the downside to eating plant-based when it comes to management of pre-diabetes and type 2 diabetes? Well, it is that the results are slow, okay? You're not going to get results very quickly, so you need to have that in mind. If you're somebody who's looking for instant results, you're not going to get that with plant-based eating. It's a gradual process. Over time, the results will come, okay? Because you are slowly getting on top of your insulin resistance. Okay, something for you to know there. So now let's talk about my approach. As you would have gathered from what I've said earlier on, I belong to pathway number 2, plant-based eating, and this is my approach under that plan. So I call it here Dr. Joe's approach. So you want to stay off starchy foods in the beginning, okay? Because in the beginning, you're still very much insulin resistant. So you want to avoid the really starchy foods because they're going to send your blood sugar high, and it's best to avoid them in the beginning. We will reintroduce them later on, but at the start, it's best to avoid them. Next in my plan is that you can have eggs, you can have fish, and you can have yogurt. Okay, and I'm talking about natural yogurt or Greek yogurt, okay, not the sugary ones. What else? You can have lots of vegetables, lots, all right, lots of vegetables. Next is that you can have peas, beans, and lentils. So those are legumes, generally speaking. Here we go. Here I've got peas here. These are garden peas or green peas. I ate lots of these when I started my journey, and I still do anyway. I used my garden peas as a substitute for white rice because I used to eat lots of white rice before I became pre-diabetic. Now I don't. And that was a very good substitute for me. I also had lots of these chickpeas, okay? Lots of that. I still do. And black-eyed peas as well. All right, so yeah, legumes, they are the way to go. They're a nice substitute for the starchy foods because in those you got lots of resistant starch. Okay, let's move on. Under my plan, you want to avoid saturated fat. We can argue this until the cows come home, but we do know there's research evidence to support the view that saturated fat makes your insulin resistance worse. So best avoid it. Next is that because we're avoiding saturated fat, you can have healthy fats. These are the unsaturated fats. So, fats from nuts, seeds, and avocados. Good for you. Next, we also want to cut down on vegetable oils. Okay, we don't want to stop using vegetable oils altogether, but we want to reduce how much of it we use over time. Cut down. When I see people prepare something like hummus and they drip a whole bottle of olive oil on it, I just think, for heaven's sake, you don't need all of that. So cut down on your vegetable oils, and you'll be helping your pre-diabetes and your type 2 diabetes. Next is, I put here, we want to reverse our insulin resistance, and there are ways around this. I'm going to do a separate video on that. All of these steps will help reverse your insulin resistance, by the way, but there's one other thing that you need to do that is very, very important when it comes to reversing your insulin resistance. So that's that. Next is, like I said, I'll do a separate video on that. Next, I put here, this one is related to diet. I know this video was mainly about diet, but I felt I needed to include this here. And I'm referring to intermittent fasting, okay? I started off with the 16-8, where you have you avoid eating for 16 hours of the day, and then you compress your eating window to just 8 hours. I did that for a while, and then I progressed to 24, okay? 24, where you don't eat for 20 hours of the day and you compress your eating window to 4 hours. And I aimed to do that 2 to 3 times a week, and you should as well. The reason why I did that was because at that time I was really overweight and I needed to get rid of the belly fat, because we do know that fat around vital organs, in particular your pancreas, fat around your pancreas will make your insulin resistance worse. In fact, it's the cause of your insulin resistance in a way. It's not the only reason, but fat in vital organs actually does make your insulin resistance worse. Even fat in the liver. So you need to reverse all of that. And I had to do that, and it did help me a lot. So you need to incorporate intermittent fasting as part of the program. That's part of my plan. Like I said, I needed to include that here because it's also diet related. So if you burn off that fat, you also be reversing your insulin resistance. So that was my approach, and it did work. I am where I am today. I'm happy with where I am. The guys who are doing carbohydrate avoidance, they're probably also happy as well. So if that's the path you want to choose, that's fine. But I prefer to tackle my carbs as opposed to avoiding them. So I think that's it. Hopefully you got some value from this video. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up. Please like the video. And also please share this video with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you got any questions regarding this video, I know some of you are going to have questions and some of you are going to have comments. You're going to disagree with some of the things I've said. Go ahead, leave your comments down below. Yes, I've had fun doing this video. I've really had lots of fun making this video. Until next time, well, this is Dr. Joe signing out.